So what we're going to be working toward this week is the following. So you notice we have a user interface in the upper right hand corner, statues collected. We're going to collect these statues, okay? And then that number goes up, some emitters spawn, and then when you get enough, you can go through this door, and when you go through the door, the camera fades, and we go to a new the starter content. So that's super simple, but there's a lot behind it, a lot going on. And today, this part one of this lesson to create this setup is we're just going to make half, anyway, of these collectible objects. So the first thing to think about when doing this is all the things behind the scene that are happening when you collect an object in a game. Right, so think about all the different things, right? Because these are all things we're going to have to program in there. So first we have to set up some sort of collision, right? Your player collides with the object. Your player has a score, and that score needs to increase when you collide with the object. And usually, like, this is a design thing, right? This is game design. You got to make something happen, right? So that the player gets some feedback and like a deeper feeling of interaction with the object, right? So you really want to create that sensation for the player, right? So the easiest way to do that is maybe spawn some particles, right? So there's some sort of like explosion or just like just something happening. And then if you want some sounds, we'll get into sound a lot later. Just to give some sort of feeling, right? That it just doesn't, and then the last thing it does is it disappears, right? So we don't want it to just simply disappear because there's no like feeling behind that. So these are the four things for today anyway that we're going to do. There's a further one, right, that we're going to look at a little later, that the object is also checking, does the player have enough to spawn that door? So that's a whole separate topic. But I think we're just looking at blueprints today, like just getting into it and just creating them. So we're just going to do these four things today. Okay? So let's set this up. I'm going to go, so this is a map under one step ahead just to show you. So let's go back to where we were last week, which was just this, right? Where we kind of just create a little environment that you can jump around, explore, maybe has some sort of story. In this case, you're like maybe stuck in some weird swamp. Right? So for whatever reason, you have to collect some statues. So we'll put them up on those platforms and we'll move our player down to here. Okay. Remember, anytime I see that little star, that's when you want to just go to save all, save your work. Anytime you see a star, hit escape to deselect something. Okay, so I'm going to go in the blueprint folder. You'll see I already have these that I set up for our demo, but I'm going to make them fresh. And so this is an introduction to creating a blueprint class. So I'm going to go here, create basic asset, blueprint class. And what we're creating is an actor. And you'll see here Unreal spells it out for you. It's an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. Now that means it doesn't really move around. It's not a non-playable character, an NPC. It's just a thing usually that you can interact with, and then it goes away. Okay? And it gives you a much more detailed explanation when you hover over it. But these other things are things usually like character would be an NPC or a player, a pawn, or something that can be possessed and you can control it. But an actor is something you cannot control. You just interact with it. So there we create our actor blueprint. Usually blueprints start with BP underscore so that you can find them easier. And we'll name this Collectable02 since I already made one. So we open this up and you see there's nothing in here. Okay? So this is the blueprint user interface. We have a viewport where you can see it. We have a construction script to kind of like build it up before it spawns. We'll look at this maybe a little later. And then the big thing we're concerned with here is the event graph. But before we even look in the event graph to add some programming, let's set up visually what this is going to look like. So we want a static mesh, just meaning object that doesn't really move around. It's just a static thing, and we'll call this collectible. And if you look in our menu here, we have a bunch of different static meshes because we did that starter content. If you need to see them bigger, I think I already increased that size. You can increase the size there. That's one way of finding them. Another way would be we can just go into the starter content under, let's see, props, I guess. You can see a bunch of them. So there's my statue. I'm going to select that. When I have that selected, I can just hit that arrow and it adds it in there for me. Or I can fold down here and kind of find it, or I can just type statue and it pops up. Okay? So in the future, that would be like your own asset that you add yourself. Some of you do in Blender, you maybe can add your own assets. So I always, every time I do a thing, I compile save. That's just like a real habit. So there's our statue, okay? And now already, we can go back into our blueprints folder. Here's our collectible. And what this enables us to do, once you make a class, is you put it in the level, and it becomes an object. And then you can just duplicate them, a bunch, right? So it's not like we have to make a million, like, Mario, whoever designed Mario didn't reprogram and create a coin every time it was put in the level, right? They made one class that was a coin class, and every time Mario collected it, his coin score went up. Right? So that's just simply what we're doing here. Okay? So before we create interactivity, we kind of have to set that up. So I already have that variable. Let's delete it, I guess. I'll make it again. So here's our first person character. You should be this far from last week, at least, right? We deleted all that extra crap. So we're just really trying to keep it minimal so you understand what's going on. So under variables, we're going to tick new variable, and we'll call this, I don't know, let's call it score. That's going to, okay, we'll call it score. Okay, and now this is called a Boolean variable, which means true or false. That's not what we're going for. We're going to pull this down and call it an integer, which is just a solid number. 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, -3. It's no decimal point. So it's just a solid number, like a score. And then we say compile save. So that's it, score. Okay. So now we have, our character now has the ability to have a score. So we go back in this collectible, and like we said, we need some way for our player to collide with it. So under add component, type collision, and let's add a box collision, I guess. You can add circle, whatever you want. Pull that up. So we have this box, and that's actually what our character is going to interact with. It's not actually the statue. It's going to be this box. Right? So that looks fine. I can bump into it. You can make it a little bigger if you want. Right? So once you get that in there, let's see, I like solid numbers. So block and just scale this to 1. Okay. So now we can start adding some programming. So here we go. So you click on event graph. You'll see some of these. Anything with a red here is an event. Event just means something that happens, something that you're going to create that happens in the game. So I'm going to delete all that default stuff. We're going to select the box. There's a few different ways to do this. This box can generate the following events. All these different things. You can also right click on it and see them over there too. So what we're going to do is we just want, when our player overlaps with the box, we want some stuff to happen. Notably, we want the score to increase, right? Which is our second thing. Right? So player collides with it and a score variable increases. Right? Now we have a problem, right? Because that score variable, you'll notice, is in this player blueprint. It's not in the collectible blueprint. So we have to reach into this blueprint, get that variable, and increase it. Okay? And how we're going to do that is a thing called casting. Casting just means reach into this blueprint and you have access to what's available in there. And we can do that because when our player collides with this, we get this thing that says other actor. So I'm going to say cast to first person character. And now make sure that's exactly that. Okay? If you renamed your first-person character, like I saw some of you had different names, make sure it's the name of whatever character is playing the game. Right? Compile save. And now you notice when I pull out from this node here, I can type score, and you see that score variable pop up. If I did it from here, nothing. Right? We can only do that because we're casting into that region. Okay? So I'm going to get the score and set it. Those are the two different things you can do with the variable. So we get score because we want to get it to increase it, and then we set score. Okay? And what do we set it to? We set it to score plus 1. So whatever the score is, increase it by 1. So we say plus integer 1, and then we connect that into there, and now our player has a score that increases. Zoom out a bit so you can see that. Okay, so I'm just right-clicking. You can add actions, and you type in here, and that's how you add things in there. Okay, so the best way is to just jump in there and try it. Watch this video very slowly, pause, try things. If you're confused, please, you can post a comment on the video or email me. Okay, so now we have a score that increases, but you can't see that happening. So the first thing, while we're working and testing things that they work, we want to see that what we're doing is having a change on the game. So usually that's done by printing things out. And this is just for testing, it's not for a final thing. So this score integer, we're going to change it to a string. A string just means some text. That's going to be a pink variable, and we're going to say print. So there we go. So now when we go over this statue, we're going to see some stuff print out, right? And we already put our statues in the level. There they are. Oops. Gotta get rid of this. Sorry, ignore this. This is for the future. Okay. So you see, we go over the statue, and we see 1, 2, 3, and every time I go over that statue, you see in the upper left corner, my score increases. Obviously, that's a problem, right? The player could cheat doing this, or it just wouldn't make sense for the gameplay. We want to create the illusion that the player is collecting the statue, right? So we got to make it go away. So we go back to our blueprint, and all we simply do is say destroy actor self. So this actor is being destroyed when we go over it only after the score increases. Okay? So those are all the things almost. We haven't looked at the third thing there, but we collide with it, score increases, the object disappears. So let's check that out. So right, I see a little star there, so I'm just going to hit save. Okay. 1, and now I can't go over it. It's gone. 2, it's gone. 3, oops, 4, 5, 6, right? So now my score is 6, and I can't increase the score anymore. That's it, and all the statues are gone. Okay? So let's create, that's a little not fun enough, right? We need something saying we're interacting with it. I'm going to hover over this destroy actor, and I'm going to hit Alt, left click, and that disconnects it with Alt. Okay? Compile save. So before we destroy it, we want to do one last thing. So I'm going to pull out from this print string and say spawn emitter at location. And then we destroy it. Now, the emitter template, since you have the starter content, we have this explosion. So just pick that one. I think that's the only one. The other ones emit for too long. We want something like instantaneous. And then we got the location, right? So we do not want it at 0, 0, 0. We want it wherever this actor is. So we say get actor location. Right here, this one, not average. Make sure it's simply get actor location. And this is called a vector variable. It's yellow, right? You'll notice these blue ones are actor variables. Anything can be a variable, right? It's anything that changes. So a vector is just an x, y, z coordinate in the game space, right? So I'm going to pull out this vector and connect it to that location. Okay? and then this would be your final blueprint for lab today. And I think on this you can really expand a lot, right? And you could make multiple collectibles, a couple different scores, like you could have a whole inventory system. So depending on how advanced you feel, you can take this simple programming and really expand on it. So okay, here's what it looks like. I'm going to zoom in a bit just so you can see it. Cast a first person character, we get the score that we made in that variable. We increase it by 1 and then we set it so it stays. Print it out so we can error check and make sure we're doing it correctly. Spawn an emitter. Wherever this collectible is, we're going to spawn the emitter there and then immediately after destroy it. So once it's destroyed, the emitter is going to keep going because we spawn the emitter. It's a separate thing. And then you'll notice the emitter will auto-destroy when it's done. So they do a lot of the hard stuff for you, which is the point of a game engine. So that's it. So let's file, save, and let's check it out. Ooh, you see that? So that feels a little better. And then you'll notice it's subtle, but in the upper left corner, you see the score increasing. So that one, I didn't put my collision, so we can put some health later. If you fall in the swamp, you like lose health, right? 5 and 6, right? That's it. Okay. So I'm going to take this very slowly because each thing you can really expand on. So master this during lab time today. It's a super simple and fun way to start building out the game. Right? And you can use your homework level that you already built out and add this functionality to that level, or you can start a whole new level, you can start a blank level just to practice. It's totally up to you.